My grandfather had a huge collection of vinyl, and I was born in 1975, so my grandparents had the standard thing that many families that had a little bit of money. There was a record player in pretty much every living area in their house. I probably listened to records in 4 or 5 different areas of the house. I used to sit and play random records with my grandmother, marveling at the sound coming from the turntable and the needle, as opposed to the actual sound coming out of the speakers themselves. My mum also had a bit of a record collection. Funk, Pink Floyd, lots of things. But music was always part of my life. I used to remember in my grandmother's lounge room, I didn't know that it was the drums. I just knew the beat. And vocals. Singing was a huge part. I didn't know what the words were, but I knew what the words were to songs. I think music for me was one of those things that was always throughout my life. And as I got older, I was a teenager, a tweenie perhaps. I certainly didn't play an instrument, but my music knowledge was strong. And as sports and girls and puberty came along, music was always there, but I didn't really tell anyone about it. So now we can fast forward to high school. I think it was a talent quest, and everyone was kind of like, this short, nerdy kind of guy, that guy can't sing. They were probably right. The first public performance that I actually did was an a cappella in front of probably 300 people. The shit scariest thing that I think I've ever done. And it was a song that I knew really well. It was actually a song about alcohol abuse. I probably didn't know the entire meanings of the lyrics, but it had incredibly emotional melody, and that's what I liked about it. And after then, I guess I gained a reputation for that nerd who could sing. Well, I could carry a tune. So then it came to year 11 and 12, and I participated in the plays that the school was putting on. I wasn't an actor in any way, shape or form, but we did a lot of musicals at my high school. That was one of the strong suits. High school finished. I started to hang out with a guy who played a lot of guitar, and he fancied himself a bit of a songwriter, and we did some originals. I did a little bit of poetry, but I'd certainly never written lyrics or exposed in words the things that I'd gone through in my life. But singing somebody else's words were actually, that weren't a cover, was actually quite liberating, because it helped me express something that wasn't mine, but I could be somebody else. Things didn't go so well. I needed to make some life changes, and sitting around people's lounge rooms 5 nights of the week to sing the same old songs over and over again got old quickly. It was actually this person who took me to a rehearsal of some people that he knew. They were younger than us, but he said, these people are real musicians. I had already decided that I wanted to live in a different country. My mother was living in the UK, in London, and I had already organised with her to move out to the UK. I literally went to this rehearsal 3 weeks before my departure date. We went to a rehearsal room, a professional rehearsal room, not somebody's lounge room. And from the first note, I knew that this was the band that I wanted to be in. It was music that I wish I'd written. I felt like I had something to contribute. But confidence, which you're supposed to have when you're a musician, was something I did not have. I am a introverted extrovert. I'd never heard music like that before. It was heavy, it was emotional, it was beautiful, it was fragile in the right places. I became friends with the guitarist. It was a three-piece, and we basically spent the next 3 weeks together, and he drove me to the airport on the day that I was leaving for the UK. Of course, I wanted to say to him, "Nah man, I'm staying and I'm going to be the singer in your band and we're going to make this happen." And I got on the plane. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. When you know that you need to do something stronger than any other force that you've encountered in your life, and you walk away from it. They gave me a tape, a cassette, with all the songs they'd ever recorded, which was like 12 songs maybe, recorded on a combination of 4-track and an 8-track, no lyrics, just the music. I killed that tape listening to it. And when I couldn't listen to it anymore, I remembered the songs. I remembered the tempo, I remembered the changes, I remembered the rises and the falls. And I felt like it was my music, which is pretty selfish. But at the same time, I made another friend in the UK who was a very good guitarist, and I asked him to teach me how to play guitar. So we found an album that I really liked, and he taught me those songs. Alright, it was the Alice in Chains Unplugged MTV recording. So I taught myself the arrangements of those songs and some basic chords and how to sing and play at the same time, and I bided my time. I wrote some lyrics and I practiced singing and I tried to grow. So about a year later, I made the decision to go back to Australia, to come home. I got off the plane in Brisbane and went straight to the Gold Coast, which is where I lived and grew up, and I called my friend straight away. I said, "You want to hang out?" He said, "Yeah, let's hang out." He told me that the entire time I'd been gone, they'd never auditioned any singers, they hadn't written any lyrics. In 2 days' time, they were auditioning a singer, a guy that I knew, and I blurted it all out. "Man, I want to be your singer. I've written all these songs and I know them all and I love your music and I think that blah, 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 blah." So they organised a secret rehearsal the day before to bring me in to let me audition. I'm not going to talk about the rehearsal because, to be completely honest, I don't remember it. We had a 3-hour session booked at the rehearsal space that they always went to, and I was absolutely scared beyond anything that I've done. I'd never exposed myself or the words that I had created to somebody else's music, which really now was our music. And I'd never bared the things that I could do vocally, emotionally, to anyone like that before. Not even myself. The 3 hours went quickly, and then we had to tell my friend that the rehearsal was cancelled, so he wouldn't be able to audition. It's empowering when you're around people who know more about a subject than you, but isolating at the same time because, well, my personality, I was constantly working out why I wasn't as good, constantly wondering whether I was good enough. Well, they kept me around. We recorded a 4-track demo, had terrible artwork. The audio was okay. It was done in a project studio. We played a venue that allowed local bands on an open mic basically every week for a year, and we showcased the same 4 songs, but then we saw it as a place to test the waters with new material, songs that had been written with me. Now, I certainly wasn't smart enough or a good enough musician to come up with riffs and arrangement, but I could write lyrics to music, and I certainly had input into the arrangement at that time, even as shit as I was. But we built a small fan base, and then the venue offered us our own gig. It was just an opening slot for one of the other bigger local bands of the time, and something that would happen quite often in later history was we did the thing that no band should do. We played better and got a better reception than the headlining act. But some time passed, and we met someone who had a vision for what we could be, and he helped us record an album. We recorded on a Neve in a real control room to tape. Unbelievable. Most bands would have their songs finished and rehearsed. We had most of the songs rehearsed, and we did some of them also on the fly as they were being tracked. It's a really hard thing to play lots of shows and then get to that point in the studio with cans on, listening to your own raw vocal of the same 3 lines, the opening verse, having to do them over and over again because you couldn't play your own music. Our engineer, he soldiered on, and he understood that we were just starting out, and I guess that we were lucky that drums, bass and guitar sorted, and a vocalist that was almost there. There's no doubt I hadn't yet found my voice. Lyrically, I had promise. That album, it's a hugely proud moment, and I haven't listened to the album for a while. But it was raw, and it was real. It definitely said something to the time of the late 90s, early 2000, Generation X. We were all so wild, extreme, doing stuff just to be extreme. And music was in a strange place. The electronica scene, going to see metal shows, both crowds were going to see acoustic shows, and everybody was going to the festivals. It didn't matter who was playing. Thankfully, I never got a tribal tattoo.